What's up, guys? My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm senior editor of IGN. As you may or may not know, I do our PlayStation coverage here, or a lot of it, at IGN. And I'm here to show you a little Vita game that I just reviewed. It's called Metrico. It's been a long time in coming. It's from a studio called Digital Dreams over in Europe, a small team. They made this game, and it's basically a little puzzler, a little puzzle platformer with a unique kind of twist. I'm giving it a 6.5 because I think the idea is really, really solid. I think it's actually a really ingenious game, but it doesn't run well. It gets a little convoluted. Some of the mechanics are messed up. We'll go over some of those things here in the review. And the load times are really, really like extraordinarily, unusually long too, which you're going to witness for yourself as we start the game. So let's get going here. We have a white screen here. I don't know why. Oh, there it is. There she goes. So basically, I've played Metrico a bunch of times. In fact, there are a few Vita games that I've actually spent more time with in pre-release than this game. Here's a really good tip, though. Use headphones when you play. It's a great tip because the ambient noise in the music is really beautiful. It's one of the best parts of the game. So don't play it with the volume off and all those kinds of things. And stay tuned, signed into the PSN if you can, too, because it does a little special things. So we're going to use the touchscreen to hit the play button here. And you can pick boy or girl. I'm a boy, so I'm going to pick the boy here. And the first stage will load up. So one of the things I really love about Metrico is that there's no words, there's no communication, there's no talking. The story is basically what you make of it, and I actually think the story is surprisingly deep, but maybe you won't find it that way when you play it. I look at it kind of as like a guy, like a paper pusher at a job who's kind of lost, and he's in this world full of strange puzzles and all these kinds of things. And I think that's the vibe I got. I think you'll kind of see it too. It's a lot of math, a lot of numbers, a lot of infographics and graphs and charts and all these kinds of things. And the puzzles are all based on how you interact with the environment in very specific ways. So I'll show you. As you can see here, the load times are just extraordinary. And you might be confused by the load times too because the game's just not that intensive. So it's a little disappointing. Also, the game doesn't run very well, and we'll see if we can show you how that is as well as we move forward. All right, so I have control here. So I'm running forward. You see when I jump, those little things come up. I jump here, this square comes up. It's basically just kind of teaching you things. See, it froze a little bit there. You're going to see quite a bit of that in the game as you go. Yeah, there again. Usually when it's loading the next puzzles. So you can see here that when I walk forward, the Y goes down and makes this block. If I walk backwards, nothing happens. But if I jump, I can send it all the way up. And so this is basically a way to introduce you to how the puzzles work in this game. This is a very simple puzzle. And so we move forward to the next puzzle. And you can see the little line on the top that kind of shows you how far along in the different worlds you are. And there are 6 worlds, scores of puzzles. But it took me an afternoon and a little bit of an evening to beat. So you can see there it's kind of not running very well again. So here's another one. I run backwards or forwards, and the platform goes up and down, allowing you to kind of jump up here. This one, I jump, nothing happens. I run backwards, it goes up. I run forward, it goes down. So I have to do this, run backwards, and then jump over here, and then continue to run backwards. And so again, this is kind of just introducing you to some of the elements of the game. And again, see, it just stumbles a little bit there when it's running. So here we have a new puzzle. We jump down, and this one is based on your altitude when you're jumping. And you can see the block over here is controlled by you walking left or right. So the idea is to get that vertical bar down so you can get the block running horizontally towards here. Once you do that, you can see that the block fits here. But there's more to this than this. So if you continue to use your altitude and kind of get up here, and then kind of run the block back over towards you, we can let it go up, and we can jump on the block and then just run with it. And that's completing that puzzle. And again, yeah, see, like when the next puzzle is just, you'll find that pretty often. So you can see that jumping controls, this one makes it go down, and every time you land, that one block kind of goes forward. So we have to kind of run back over here to reset everything. And then we'll do this. And we'll patiently wait for it to kind of get... Oh, we missed it. Let's try again. Kind of just go back and forth and force it over here. Oof. Really freezing there. So now we're skidding down. And we're going forward to the next puzzle. Now this one, you can see running back and forth will make it to 100. And this one's an interesting one because it actually... Here, what happens if you die? Well, there you go. Actually dying is part of the mechanic. And you can see that the 0 of 3 becomes 1 of 3 and then 2 of 3 and then it creates a full bridge. And you can then just walk right across, and that's that puzzle. So it's cool because the first world is basically just introducing you to a lot of the elements. And I don't want to show you really too far into the game because I feel like it will spoil it. This one's really interesting. I want to show you guys this one again. Because this is one of the first ones where I was like, huh, this is very clever. So every time you land, that goes up. And if you even weren't to jump, but just still land on the platform below, it still goes up. But it's too tall for you to reach. There's pits here so you can kill yourself and try again. And later you'll find little portals that will let you start the puzzles again at will. The idea here is actually just to drop down, hitting it only once. And then you can jump right on top and pass the puzzle and go on to the next one. So this one's controlled all by backwards movement. So if we can get this one kind of going like this, just a little bit more, jump on this one, and then this one's controlled by jumping here on the right. So see, it's a little ingenious and a little clever little game. And I'm really glad that I get to show you this first world because this is really when the game really shines. If the whole game was this good, we'd be in for something pretty extraordinary. But unfortunately, the game does start to fall apart a little bit. But I do want to show you before we go just a cool little thing that happens at the end of each world. And by the way, the worlds are not all that short, and they are certainly not all that easy. It's a very introductory kind of thing here. So when you're connected to the PSN, you'll see like 2 different doors. One to the left, one to the right. And the bar graph above shows you which doors people opted to take. And it's kind of cool because you can see the choices other people made around the world. This is very similar, of course, to Telltale's The Walking Dead. Every time I played, when I was playing in pre-review, I would always just take the left door for some reason. And it seems like most people opted to actually take the right door. All right, so I wanted to show you a little bit of the game's second world, too. Won't make you sit through those exorbitant load times, but the second world introduces new elements, and you'll find that through the 6 worlds that they all introduce new elements, and that's really one of the major problems with the game is that the elements get too unwieldy and they get a little too crazy. They remind me a lot of Uncharted Golden Abyss and the lessons we learned from otherwise a great game that was somewhat held back by the use of just everything the Vita could possibly do. And even though Metrico starts out strong, it actually gets weaker and weaker and weaker. And we won't see all that because I really don't want to spoil it for you because the game does get quite dynamic. But it uses the camera. It uses light and different colors of light that you have to have around you. So there was times where I was playing the game where I had to have a green piece of paper next to me and I was sitting on a red rug on a blue chair where I was actually using the different colors because I had to. Like it's a game that you can't play in the dark. You can't play on a plane. You can't play on a train. Like it gets a little too complicated. Then it throws in some motion controls. So eventually the puzzles get so complicated and so crazy that you're basically just shaking the Vita and using the camera and trying to figure out things, how to make it all work instead of basically just playing, a pretty much more straightforward puzzler that might be a little more satisfying. The game really does fall apart because of all this. It also features some pretty weak back touch usage, and it's disappointing because I was really super excited about this game because I kept playing that first world and a little bit of the second world, which is also pretty good over and over again. But really, those deeper parts of the game that I finally got to really fell apart, and some of the puzzles just get frustrating because there are just so many elements that you have to keep track of. But this is a cool element. Earlier in the first world, I told you about how there were going to be portals that would let you return to the beginning of the puzzle without having to kill yourself like we did in that one puzzle. If you do that by just pressing circle. And here we'll just press circle over and over again to make a little staircase and we can jump up and go to the next puzzle. Here, we can just press circle to teleport right above it. So this is basically just kind of introducing some new elements. Here we have a 70% and then an 89% rather in the corner. So if we press circle, it's still 70%. So what do? Well, if we go back and forth walking right and left, we can see that the 80% one kind of moves. And if we jump, we see that this affects this one here. So using all of that knowledge, we can kind of just assume that we can make this leap and then make that leap and pass this puzzle. So again, just introducing some elements. Again, some not running very well in between puzzles. Reminds me a lot of the way The Walking Dead actually runs on PlayStation Vita, where it just doesn't run, as well as you would expect. This one's all about controlling how blocks move by jumping, so we can get them to grow like this. And then if we start here, we can kind of just jump back and forth and get these to grow the appropriate size so that we can jump over to the right. So again, I don't want to show you, too much of the game. I think this is a game that, is kind of still worth playing to experience the ambience, the beautiful music and sound effects, the graphics. I just wish it ran better. I wish that the load times were better. I don't understand why. These might be some of the most exorbitant load times I've seen on Vita, actually, and I play a lot of Vita games. And I was hoping that might have been cleaned up from the pre-release version, but it wasn't. And even the stuttering nature of in between puzzles and stuff isn't like too much to be that disappointed in. But these are still things that are noticeable. But it really is the gameplay itself that suffers later on in the game because there's just too many elements. I'm really interested to see what some of you guys think about it when you get further in the game and see how it is, because even though there's an undeniable satisfaction in figuring out these puzzles, some of them you have to just brute force your way through because there are just so many elements. It's not clear what you're supposed to do ever, in some of these later worlds and later puzzles. And I think that the guys at Digital Dreams were maybe a little too ambitious in some of these later puzzle ideas, especially getting things. People don't really like back touch. They really don't want to use the camera. They don't want light puzzles and all that kind of stuff on Vita. We learned those lessons a couple of years ago, and in that respect, the game was made a little bit in a vacuum, and that was kind of disappointing. So, you can read more about Metrico in our full review on IGN and kind of see more what the game's about, more some of the things I liked, some of the things I didn't. But 6.5, it's an okay game. If you're really looking for something on Vita, you're really a big puzzle fan, it might be for you. Otherwise, I think that there are better puzzlers on the handheld that will keep you busy. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed my little review commentary. And for more on all things PlayStation Vita, you can always keep it tuned to IGN.